Thank you all for taking the time to join us here today. My name is Brooke Frischemeier. As the sign says, I'm the head of product management at our cloud business unit at Rakuten Symphony. So we have numerous products, but we're going to be very specific in this particular presentation. We're going to talk about cloud native storage, but it's our cloud native storage for our Google Distributed Edge partnership. And again, if you think you like the storage, please stick around because we have many things that we can talk about. And what we're seeing, and what we've been seeing for decades now really, is we see this modernization of the edge. We look about enhancing the digital experience, and really now we're at a great point in time because we have very flexible Kubernetes architectures, and we have companies like Google who can actually roll out these solutions all the way to the edge, right? So when we look at what's needed there, we want to extend new edge type of opportunities, customer experience, business continuity, just-in-time management. And we also see that in order to make this happen, we need to make decisions closer and closer to the edge. I can't have a seamless customer experience if I'm going thousands of miles back to one or two data centers. And I don't want to have numerous network connections that can fail along the way. So keeping things local is a big advancement. And what it's going to help us do are several things, like increase our business continuity. It's going to help us shorten our supply chain, do a lot of that just-in-time management. And it's going to allow us to scale in the edge, because the race isn't over once you deploy, and the race actually just begins after you deploy. Because you don't just need to be first, you need to continue to innovate time and time again to get that advantage. And if we look at some of the key marketplaces here, you'll see there are certain things that are very specific to the verticals, and some have horizontal appeal. Retail, fast-moving consumer goods. Again, unified digital and in-person experience. Making sure that we have all the stock necessary to do things. Banking and financial, very different. Well, everybody is always focused on security, as are we. There's a complete different kind of compliance regulations that you have to go for. And again, you're going to need the high availability of applications, because everybody in the bank world knows, time is money. And I can tell you, even as of 20 years ago, a bank could tell you, if you went to them, exactly the cost of a millisecond. So they get all this. We have smart manufacturing that has different challenges, maybe not as many as retail or a bank, but again, they have their other safety, compliance, high availability issues they need to have. One that is more unique is the entertainment. They're worried about pre-positioning media. They're worried about live interaction with whoever's controlling that media, or having things where they have a bunch of third-party influencers that are involved. And there's a lot of different things with congestion and control that are very important. And last, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of interest in from municipalities and governments is how they integrate edge computing into disaster management, how they make that ultra reliable and very flexible for many different events that can happen. And if you didn't see it coming, I was going to tell you that a lot of these services and applications, it's all about data. And if it's all about data, your storage, in our case, our software-defined storage, is super critical. Because when we look back at what we just talked about, we have different security and compliance rules across there. If you're going to move to the edge, you absolutely need a new level of this persistency. You need things that are much more reliable. You need things that do not need to be tied back to some head-in cloud all the time. You need seamless data optimization, because the people visiting you at one place or online, you need to find a way to unify that experience and get all of the different nodes at the edge and the core communicating. And last but not least, the big thing is you got to get it off the ground. I mean, we've seen this with early virtualization with VMware, we've seen it with OpenStack, and now we see it with Kubernetes, right? There are tasks that need to be done, and if you can't get it off the ground, you can't sell it. And the other big thing is, once it's off the ground and running, how do we make it so you can very easily change? It's not just about that big bang launch, it's about managing it. It's about allowing your other teams to say, look, I'd like to add this service or tweak this service because something needs to be run different. And that's where Google Distributed Edge Cloud comes into play. Now, I'll talk more about our search solution, but just want to point out, and I'll say this probably a couple more times, is for the Edge platform that they deploy on-premise, we are the only integrated solution. Right. And we had a lot of customers, including data centers and banks, using our storage solution before we came to play with Google Distributed Edge Cloud. We worked with them for over a year on a joint seamless experience. I was a part of it. Many of the guys who are standing around here, multiple calls every week to make sure things we did just right. Because it's not only do we need a great cloud platform, we need to make sure that it's seamless with everything Google for this particular one. Another great thing about that is one throat to choke. You shouldn't even, when you're using their solution, have to see Rakuten Cloud or Rakuten Symphony, which is the company that we directly work for, because it's all pre-integrated. Someone did that work up front. You shouldn't have to see any additions or billing, right? Because a lot of the reasons why you want to go with these cloud vendors is you have this real-time billing, where you're not going to have a separate billing. You're not going to have a separate escalation for any bugs. It's all going to be integrated into the Google system, and you don't even have to worry about me showing up at your door to try to sell you something or fix your network. And the other big thing is that this is a segue into our next slide is it's highly, highly optimized for Edge. Because when you think about some of the things that I mentioned a little bit earlier, we talk about resiliency, we talk about performance. These are big head-end type of problems. So what we need to find a way is to take all of that functionality and bring it to the edge. And one of the things that we can do this is we can deploy it in a single node, the joint solution. We can deploy it in 3+ nodes. We have some customers that have 40+ nodes with Google using that. But in any case, it scales up, it scales down, it performs, and it has other optimizations. So it's not just a low footprint. I think it takes up about 2 cores, because the only thing worse than buying one server is buying 2 or 3 more servers because your platform's heavy. So the platform is very lightweight with full functionality, but it has a lot of other ways that it optimizes the data, because that's really where the space gets up. You know, we have a lot of compression, and we have data tiering, and all of that, again, is integrated into the Google solution. So in the end of the day, this is kind of how we look at things. You have bare metal, you have virtual machines, so the solution can run containers. It's a Kubernetes-based solution, if you're familiar with Anthos, but it also works for virtual machines. So if you want to deploy, you don't have to wait for your vendor timeline to containerize everything. You can take everything that you have now and put it on the solution. And then we have our Rakuten Cloud native service where we can run any application. All right? Now, the reason the solution is a good solution is has all, like I said, all of those main features that you see in a large data center scaled down into a full package. If you want to back up, you can back up. You can restore, you can roll back, you can clone, you can set different retention policies. All of these features, high-touch features, are fully available at the edge. You can use block and file storage. We work on any existing media, right? So again, you can get the Google system, but if you wanted to add on to that, it will work with the embedded infrastructure that you have there. And then the big thing is, talked about a little earlier, it's how do we reduce your time to outcome? The number one thing that really I've seen people fail for decades at anything that we call virtual or edge is integration, right? You have enough to worry about to make sure that all of your applications are running right. You don't want to make sure that something in the infrastructure has to be dealt with. So that's why everything has been pre-integrated, pre-certified, guaranteed to work for years now. So the question is, why did they choose us? So I would say just about every cloud-native storage or any Kubernetes-based storage that I've seen there is based on an old system. Some of the very popular ones are based on a system that's been morphed from bare metal to virtual machines to OpenStack, and they're 15 years old and they're garbage, right? They don't perform well. We see in other vendors that call themselves cloud-native, they're doing something very similar. They're just getting some old open source, they're putting a shim layer on there and calling it cloud-native. Kubernetes is very different under the covers. You have a lot of different, you don't just have an application. Your application is put into microservices. They all scale individually and have their own different relationship to the data. The way this solution works is the solution understands how it's put together because it can read that solution and it tracks how that solution works for the entire life cycle of its existence. And that's something I'd love to talk about in more detail. I have another presentation later this week, but our application awareness is certainly something worth sticking around to, talking to some of our experts here. Again, great performance because it was not based off of any legacy solution. Like I said, lots of different things can happen with Kubernetes that weren't applicable 10 years ago with other solutions. We have a lot of things for high availability, like auto resync on fall behind, fast failover with sprint vein avoidance. Our solution isn't just a passenger to Kubernetes, it gets integrated into the Kubernetes and can help it make quick decisions. Okay? And the last thing I do want to put on strictly consistent replication across your application and your data, and it's based off of actual disk writes. It's not based off of something that's cached, which can cause you problems when you want to quiesce. And last of all, we mentioned this a little earlier, it has all of the main features that you think of for disaster recovery, for snapshots, cloning. All of this is fully available at the edge. Last but not least, talk about customer success that we've already had. I mentioned before that our storage on its own has been used at banks and other data centers. I can't talk about all those names, but Google has announced all the names. One of them is we have a major online betting solution, 16 locations, 400 plus nodes. That's been up and running for, I'm guessing, about 6 months now. No issues there. And there's a major retail chain, 40,000 stores that we've already begun rolling out. I mean, and I think that really puts it into perspective, what you're getting yourself into. Because regardless of what everybody tells you, you're rolling out data centers to all these stores. I might not have a top-of-rack switch, an end-of-row switch, but I've got all kinds of networking. You have full cloud platforms underneath. And what our solution and the Google solution have done together is we've found a way to make it look like just a box, but give you all of the reliability and the ease of use and full functionality of a complex system. So to kind of recap everything, it's a fully integrated solution with Google, one throat to choke, unified billing, unified support. It'll give you all of the high performance, feature functionality, and security that you would need at the edge, and it will help you roll out faster and iterate faster. Any questions? Then please take a walk around. We've got a lot of smart people here today, some great demos, and thank you for taking the time to join us. Right, appreciate it.